Miyamoto Musashi killed his first man at age 13. By 30, he'd fought over 60 duels without a single loss. But the disturbing part isn't the body count. It's what he did to his own psychology to achieve complete emotional detachment. His method was so extreme that he warned students not to attempt it without accepting permanent psychological changes. Modern neuroscience explains why it worked and why it's genuinely dangerous. The problem Musashi identified. Most samurai died because of a half-second hesitation, not lack of skill, not inferior technique. Fear, anger, doubt. These emotions triggered a 200 millisecond delay between decision and action. In a sword fight, 200 milliseconds is the difference between your head attached and your head rolling. Musashi realized something dark. You can't control emotions during combat. The adrenaline dump is biological. Fear is automatic. So he stopped trying to control emotions. Instead, he killed the neural pathways that connected emotion to action. He didn't become fearless. He became fear irrelevant. The death meditation. Musashi's primary technique sounds simple. Spend 1 hour daily visualizing your own death in explicit detail. Not abstract death, specific, graphic death. Sword through your throat, spear in your stomach, skull crushed, every possible way you could die in combat. Most people think this is about accepting death philosophically. It's not. It's systematic desensitization therapy, 400 years before psychology had a name for it. Here's the neuroscience. Your amygdala, the brain's fear center, triggers fight or flight responses based on perceived threats. When you visualize your death repeatedly in a calm state, you're training your amygdala to classify imminent death as non-threatening. You're literally rewiring your threat assessment system. Modern exposure therapy uses the same principle for treating phobias. Show someone with arachnophobia pictures of spiders repeatedly in a safe environment. The fear response weakens. Musashi did this with his own mortality, every single day, for years. But here's where it gets dark. This doesn't just reduce fear, it reduces all emotional responses to danger. Your brain can't selectively desensitize. If you teach it that death is not a crisis, you're also teaching it that nothing is a crisis. Musashi didn't just lose his fear of death, he lost his fear of everything. The emptiness practice. Musashi called his second technique becoming water, or the void mind. The method is psychologically brutal. Train yourself to have zero internal dialogue during action. This is called metacognition, thinking about thinking. It consumes cognitive bandwidth and creates hesitation. Musashi's training: sit in meditation position. The moment a thought appears, slap your own face, hard. Repeat for 1 hour daily. When a thought emerges and you don't catch it within 1 second, double slap. This sounds medieval, but it's operant conditioning. You're creating a pain association with internal dialogue. Your brain learns that thinking equals pain, silence equals safety. Within months, thoughts stop arising during high-stress situations. Not because you're controlling them, because your neural networks have learned to suppress them automatically. The result? Musashi described fights where he couldn't remember making decisions. His body responded to threats before his conscious mind registered them. He was operating on pure pattern recognition, the same way you catch a falling object before deciding to catch it. Modern soldiers accidentally achieve this through trauma. Combat veterans often report acting without thinking during firefights. Musashi built it deliberately through psychological self-harm. The isolation protocol. For the final phase, Musashi spent years in complete isolation. Not meditation retreats, not spiritual journeys, total social disconnection. He lived in caves, went months without speaking to humans, hunted his own food, rode in solitude. This wasn't about finding himself. It was about killing his social brain. Humans are wired for social connection. We have mirror neurons that automatically sync our emotions with others. When someone smiles, you feel happier. When someone panics, you feel anxiety. This is hardwired. You can't turn it off unless you starve it. Your brain maintains neural pathways through use. Social isolation causes the mirror neuron system to atrophy. Studies on prolonged isolation show decreased emotional contagion, reduced empathy response, and flattened affect. After months alone, Musashi literally couldn't catch emotions from others. In combat, this is an advantage. You don't absorb your opponent's aggression or fear. You don't get psyched out by their confidence or intimidated by their rage. You're emotionally fireproof because the receptors are dead. But the cost? Musashi never married, had no close friends, described feeling separate from the world even in crowds. He'd successfully destroyed the neural infrastructure for human connection. That's not enlightenment. That's psychological scarring used as tactical advantage. The pain conditioning. Musashi's most disturbing technique. Deliberate pain exposure to train emotional dissociation. He would sit in winter rivers until hypothermia threatened, stand under waterfalls for hours, hold burning incense to his skin until it blistered. The point wasn't physical toughness, it was creating a psychological split between physical sensation and emotional response. Normal people experience pain-emotion reaction as one chain. You touch something hot, feel pain, feel distress, pull away. 3 steps. Musashi trained to sever the middle link. Pain reaction. No emotional component. This is what psychologists call dissociation, the separation of physical experience from emotional awareness. It's a symptom in trauma disorders. Musashi induced it deliberately. The tactical advantage is obvious. In combat, injuries don't trigger panic or shock. A cut arm is just reduced functionality, not a catastrophe. You continue fighting with broken bones, lacerations, exhaustion. Your body reports damage, but your brain doesn't interpret it as an emergency. Modern special forces use milder versions of this. Hell Week for Navy SEALs creates temporary dissociation through extreme stress. Musashi's version was permanent. Why this method is actually dangerous. Musashi's techniques work. Military psychologists have independently developed similar protocols. The problem is they don't turn off. You can't rewire your threat response system for combat and leave it normal for everything else. The documented effects of Musashi's method: blunted emotional range, difficulty forming attachments, persistent sense of unreality, inability to feel joy or sadness at normal intensity. These are symptoms of depersonalization disorder. Musashi called it seeing through the eyes of death. Psychiatry calls it pathology. He warned about this explicitly. In the Book of 5 Rings, he wrote that students who follow his path completely will be divorced from the ordinary world. That's not poetic. That's a warning label. The modern application. You don't need to become Musashi, but the principles work in scaled-down versions. Stress inoculation. Regularly expose yourself to the stressors of your field in controlled settings. Public speaking fear. Do small talks weekly. Market volatility anxiety. Paper trade during crashes. Your amygdala learns the threat isn't lethal. Thought discipline. Practice catching and dismissing intrusive thoughts during performance. Not through meditation, through repetition under pressure. Your brain learns which thoughts serve action and which ones interfere. Calculated discomfort. Regularly do things that are uncomfortable but not harmful. Cold showers, difficult conversations, physical challenges. This builds the neural pathway that separates discomfort from danger. The truth nobody wants to admit. Musashi's method proves something uncomfortable. Peak performance and psychological health are often opposites. Complete emotional control requires emotional damage. Total focus requires cutting connections. Fearlessness requires breaking natural fear responses. You can be an optimized performer or a balanced human. Musashi chose performance and spent the last years of his life alone in a cave, writing about a void he couldn't escape. The question isn't whether his method works. It obviously works. The question is what you're willing to pay for it. Most people need emotional connection, fear responses, and internal dialogue. These things make you human. They also make you hesitate. That's the trade-off. Musashi made his choice. He became the greatest swordsman in Japanese history and died alone, having intentionally destroyed every part of himself that wanted anything except to win. That's not inspiration. That's a warning about what optimization actually costs.